The story begins in the neighborhood of Wrigley in Chicago. Henry, a dreamy kid, is running with his friends George and Clark on their way to the baseball field. Today, the school has an important game, and Henry feels that, finally, he might earn a spot as a starter. On the way, they run into his mom, Mary, who wishes him luck and even tosses him some sunscreen. But Henry can't even catch it. That tiny detail already shows he still has a long way to go before achieving his big dream of becoming a professional player. When they arrive at the field, Henry is sitting on the bench, as always. But luck is on his side. The catcher starts sneezing non-stop because of a cold, so Henry gets sent into the game. As soon as the ball is hit, he runs with all his determination to catch it, but ends up slamming straight into the fence, falls to the ground, and his cap drops over his eyes. Even so, he manages to grab the ball, only to throw it out of the field. Because of that mistake, his team loses by 1 point, and Henry goes right back to the bench for the next games. When he gets home, the day doesn't get any better. He has to deal with Jack, his mom's new boyfriend. Henry doesn't like the idea much because he still misses his dad, and that's why he always uses the old glove that belonged to him. The next day at school, Henry runs into Becky, the girl he likes. During recess, he tries to gather the courage to talk to her, but one of the team's players starts making fun of him because of the mistake he made during the game. To mess with him, he challenges Henry to pick up a baseball and throw it toward the field. And of course, Henry wants to impress Becky. He runs as fast as he can, but steps on another ball hidden on the ground, loses his balance, and lands on his right arm. The fall is so hard that he ends up dislocating his shoulder and gets a cast that forces him to keep his arm raised. For long months go by, during which he can't play baseball and, on top of that, becomes the target of everyone's jokes at school. When the day finally comes to remove the cast, the doctor asks him to move his arm to make sure everything is fine. The treatment seems to have worked, but as soon as Henry lowers his arm, he accidentally punches the doctor right in the nose, with surprising force. Even though Henry tries to apologize, the doctor concludes that his tendons became extremely strong during his recovery. Later, Mary picks him up and before going home, gives Henry and his friends 3 tickets to see the Chicago Cubs play. The boys get excited and run to Wrigley Field, where they get to see their favorite player, the pitcher Chet. He used to be known as Rocket, but ever since he injured his shoulder, he hasn't been the same. The game begins, and during one of the plays, the ball is hit and lands right at George's feet. Stadium rules say it must be returned, so George lets Henry be the one to do it. Henry grabs the ball, feels something strange in his arm, and when he throws it, the ball shoots out at an incredible speed. It crosses the entire field in a second and lands right into the catcher's glove. The people around him are shocked. Several approach him, but Henry gets nervous and bolts out of the stadium. Even so, his throw catches the attention of Fisher, the team's director, who sends his assistant to find out who that kid is. Meanwhile, Henry and his friends head back home and decide to test his new super arm. Just like in the stadium, Henry throws so fast that his friends can't even see the ball pass by. Right then, Mary arrives with Jack, and when Jack sees what Henry can do, he doesn't hesitate. He decides to become Henry's agent and contact the Chicago Cubs. The next day, Jack takes Henry to meet Sal, the coach of the Chicago Cubs, and together they go to the stadium to test how fast Henry can really throw. With a speed gun in hand, Sal is blown away. Henry can throw the ball at over 100 miles per hour. With that kind of talent, Fisher doesn't think twice and signs the kid as the Cubs' newest player, placing him directly in the lineup for the next game. The day of the debut arrives. Henry and his friends head excitedly to Wrigley Field, but when they get there, the janitor tells them that only players are allowed inside. George and Clark stay outside while Henry is taken to the locker room. Inside, he's amazed to meet the players, especially his idol, Chet, the Rocket, but the players aren't happy at all about having a kid as backup, and they completely ignore him. Even so, Henry puts on his uniform and heads straight to the field for the big game against the Mets. The game starts. Chet tries his best, but the opposing batters are hitting everything he throws. The crowd begins shouting for Henry to be put in, and Fisher, feeling the pressure, orders Rocket to be replaced by the kid. Henry can hardly believe it. He walks onto the field surrounded by thousands of fans and takes his position, but his debut isn't what he hoped for. He makes his first pitch, and the batter hits it easily, scoring a run for the Mets. On the second pitch, Henry is so nervous that he almost hits his own catcher. Things get worse when, on another attempt, the batter hits again and starts running the bases. Luckily, the Cubs players catch him just in time before he reaches third, saving the play. Even with those slips, the Cubs manage to win by a very small margin, but it's clear Henry needs training, so Sal assigns Chet to the job. Rocket doesn't want to train a kid, but they make it clear that if he doesn't cooperate, he'll be kicked off the team, so he has no choice. Meanwhile, Henry goes back to school. Even though he didn't play perfectly, now all the students, including Becky, are shocked that he's part of a professional team. Deep down, Henry just wants to keep living a normal life with his friends. After school, he, George, and Clark keep working on their project to build a boat. Hours later, Henry returns to the stadium to meet with Chet and start his training. Chet is still a bit annoyed, but little by little he discovers that the kid has potential. In fact, when Henry throws, it reminds him of the old days when he was a star. The team then travels to another game, this time against the San Francisco Giants. As expected, things don't go well for Chet, and Henry has to step in again. Determined to show he's improved, he takes his position, but on his first attempt he ends up hitting the opposing batter's leg. So Chet walks onto the field to talk to him. He tells Henry that fear is part of who you are, but what matters is letting courage take control. Chet doesn't know if it helped, and Henry didn't really understand much. Even so, the break ends and he has to pitch. On the next play, the batter hits the ball again, but not very far, letting the Cubs players catch it in time, saving first and second base. That small win gives Henry a boost of confidence. Another pitch comes. This time, Henry aims well and the catcher grabs it easily. Strike. On the second pitch, the same thing happens, and on the third, he gets yet another strike, ending the game and giving the Cubs the victory. The whole team runs to congratulate him, and for the first time all season, the Chicago Cubs win 2 games in a row. After the game, the team heads back to the locker room to change, and when Henry opens his locker, he finds a baseball sign by Rocket. The kid is thrilled by the gesture. Little by little, his idol is starting to warm up to him. Later, Henry meets up with Mary and his friends in the stands, and the 3 of them end up playing a mini game right there in the middle of the stadium. From a distance, Rocket watches the kids and crosses paths with Henry's mom. She thanks him for the advice he gave her son during the game, and Rocket, smiling, tells her that Henry is a good kid with the talent to become a great pitcher someday. The next day, Henry heads to the airport to travel with the team, since the next game will be in Los Angeles. Before Henry boards the plane, Mary says goodbye and, as always, tosses him the sunscreen. But this time Henry catches it without any problem. Then he joins the team and takes a seat next to Chet on the plane. During the flight, Henry thanks him for the autographed ball and admits that he's always been his greatest idol. But Rocket asks him not to call him that. Ever since his shoulder injury, he can't pitch like he used to, and no matter how many surgeries he's had, he's afraid that if he pushes himself too much, he could get permanently injured. Even with all that, Henry still admires him just the same. When they arrive in Los Angeles, the team gets ready for the game against the Dodgers. Once again, Henry surprises everyone with his talent. His performance impresses Sal so much that he decides to try something new. This time, he wants Henry to play as a batter. Chet thinks it's a terrible idea. Henry has no experience, and a strong pitch could seriously hurt him. But Sal insists, so Chet tries to calm the boy down. He tells him to keep the bat low, to never take his eyes off the ball. Henry steps into position. The opposing pitcher has zero mercy. He throws with all his strength. Henry, scared, tries to swing but misses. Strike one. The pitcher keeps pushing him, but on the third pitch, he sends the ball far outside the zone. The umpire calls it a ball, and Henry is now in a good position to advance to first base. After that, the Cubs send in another batter. To throw off the opposing team, Henry starts distracting the pitcher. As expected, the rival loses focus and throws a terrible pitch that the Chicago batter instantly takes advantage of. Henry runs from first base and reaches third at full speed, once again scoring the winning run. With this streak, the Chicago Cubs remain undefeated all season and earn a spot in the World Series, all thanks to Henry's unexpected talent. After returning from another trip, Mary arrives at the airport to wait for her son, but finds herself completely surrounded by reporters. Luckily, Chet helps Henry push through the crowd, and the three of them run to the limousine. From there, they head to a party hosted by the team. Henry uses the moment to leave Mary and Chet alone, and little by little, the two begin getting closer, something Jack really doesn't like. In the middle of the party, Fisher approaches Jack and drops a bombshell. He's received an offer from the Yankees to buy Henry for $25 million. And on top of that, Jack would receive a 10% commission. The agent accepts the offer with one condition, that Chet be removed from the team. Fisher agrees without hesitation. The next morning, while all of this is happening, Henry goes to film a commercial without knowing anything. His fame has grown so much that he's been drifting farther and farther away from his friends, which is why he shows up late to work on the boat. When Henry arrives at the lake, he discovers that George and Clark have already finished everything themselves. George, upset, confronts Henry and tells him that he's abandoned them because of his fame. He even throws in that Henry is only on the Cubs because of his accident, which makes Henry explode. The two start fighting, and Clark, with great effort, manages to separate them. Even so, their friendship is broken, and Henry walks away frustrated toward the locker room. Things don't get better. Fisher calls Chet in and tells him he's off the team. He says he's tired of waiting for him to get back to his old level, and that until his contract ends, he'll have to stay on the bench. Chet can barely hide his anger, but he doesn't say anything to Henry. When training ends, he simply walks the boy back home. When they arrive, Henry runs into Jack, who tells him to get changed quickly because they have a photo shoot. Henry refuses. He's tired of all the publicity, just wants to be with his friends. Jack loses patience and orders him to obey, but this time Henry pushes back and tells him he's not his father. Jack says that doesn't matter. He even claims that Mary doesn't even know who the boy's real father is. What he didn't expect is that Mary was listening to everything. Furious, Mary ends the relationship on the spot and throws Jack out of the house. Jack insists, but Mary punches him so hard that he flies right out the door. Henry is stunned by his mom's bravery. Once Mary calms down, she calls Henry over to talk about his father, but Henry tells her he already knows the story. He left when she got pregnant. Even so, he assures her that it doesn't matter to him because Mary has always been his role model and the person who's been there for him every step of the way. Mary is moved, and after making up with his mom, Henry decides to do the same with his friends. A few minutes later, he goes to the lake and finds them finishing up the boat, now with the motor George took from his dad. When he sees Henry, George is still hurt, but he still invites him to cross the river together. Henry agrees, and the three of them start the engine and take off. On the way, they see Becky and several high school students on the shore. Henry invites her without hesitation, and they all spend the afternoon sailing and having fun. In that moment, Henry realizes he needs to take better care of the people who truly matter to him. The next morning, Henry goes to the Cubs stadium to talk to Bob Carson, Fisher's uncle and the owner of the team. He thanks him for the opportunity, but tells him he wants to leave the team to focus on other things. Bob, although he knows Henry has talent, respects his decision and asks him to at least play the last game for a spot in the World Series. But during the conversation, Henry mentions the supposed sale to the Yankees. Bob is stunned. He didn't know anything about it. He quickly finds out that Fisher and Jack were doing everything behind his back. Right then and there, he fires his nephew and assures Henry that he will always be welcome in the Chicago Cubs. He also reinstates Chet as the starting pitcher for the final game. When Chet finds out, he gets nervous, but Henry encourages him. He tells him this is his chance to show what he's really made of. The final game will once again be against the Mets. The big day arrives. The players step onto the field, and the game starts with Chet pitching first. After years of doubt, he decides not to waste his moment and steps in ready to give it everything he's got. To the surprise of the entire stadium, he throws straight to the catcher without giving the batter a chance. Then come to more pitches, and he gets 3 strikes. The batter is out. The crowd erupts and starts calling him Rocket again. Henry watches proudly as his idol earns back his place, while the Cubs stay ahead of the Mets. It's almost Rocket's turn to pitch again, but this time he has to face one of the Mets' best hitters. Rocket takes a deep breath, gets ready, and pitches, but the batter connects and scores a run. And to make matters worse, Chet feels a sharp pain in his shoulder. Even so, he tries to continue and throws again, but the ball falls outside the strike zone. With that miss, the batter advances to first base, and the situation gets worse. After that mistake, the coach decides to take him out of the game, but Rocket insists on trying one last time. It's not the best idea, but the coach agrees. The entire stadium, especially Henry, watches as Rocket prepares for his final pitch of the game. Chet gathers whatever strength he has left, throws, and the batter hits the ball, but the bat shatters into pieces. The ball stays in play, and Rocket, seeing the chance to save the game, runs with everything he's got, even with his injured shoulder. He reaches first base before the batter, making a heroic out that earns his team crucial points. The stadium explodes with cheers. In pain, Rocket returns to the bench, unable to pitch anymore, and now it's Henry's turn. The boy walks in determined and, just like his idol, starts throwing strike after strike, keeping the Cubs' lead and even increasing it. But just when they're one play away from winning, Henry runs across the field, steps on a forgotten baseball, and falls on his arm. Just like when he got injured at school, he hears a crack, and in that moment he understands. His tendons have gone back to normal. When he throws again, the ball comes out with no strength. Everyone is stunned. Henry keeps trying, but after several pitches outside the strike zone, it becomes clear that the Mets are just one step away from taking the lead. So Henry calls for a timeout and gathers the team. He tells them he has a plan to win without needing the strength of his arm. The game resumes, and the next batter is none other than Heno, the Mets' best player, famous for never missing a fastball. Henry is nervous, but he trusts the strategy. He makes a quick motion as if he's about to throw a powerful fastball, but instead releases a slow pitch. It's a changeup, and it works. Heno swings to early and misses the first pitch. Henry tries again. Heno hits the ball, but it goes foul. One pitch left. Henry tries to come up with something new when he notices a sticker on his glove starting to peel off. Under it is Mary's name. The glove belonged to his mom. Realizing she has always been there supporting him, Henry fills with motivation. Everyone expects him to do something spectacular, but Henry simply tosses the ball high into the air, an odd, unexpected pitch. Heno thinks it'll be an easy hit and goes all in, but he misses. The ball drops right into the catcher's glove. The stadium erupts. The Cubs win and secure their spot in the World Series. All the players rush to hug Henry, the hero of the game. Days later, the boy keeps his promise and says goodbye to the team so he can go back to playing baseball with his friends at the school field. Even though he no longer has his old pitching arm, he becomes an excellent catcher, good enough to catch a home run. Clark, George, Becky, Mary, and Chet himself, who retired to become the new coach of the school team, celebrate with him. Henry smiles, happy, proudly showing off the World Series ring the Cubs gave him for everything he did for the team. Don't forget to like and subscribe and let me know what you think about this movie.